This program is brought to you by newscliptv.com. Make your own news. Register online and become a Newsclip TV reporter. Newsclip TV, your community news website.
Welcome to Persistence Pays TV. I'm your host, Lori Rowdnask. Have you always wondered how to get your relationship hot and steamy? How to keep it going? Well, today on the show I have Marilyn Belleghem here, and she's a marriage and family relationship therapist. And I'm really happy that you're here because we're going to talk about the persistence of relationships. We're going to talk about how to keep them going. And we're also going to talk about your experience in persistence. Marilyn wrote a series of books on her personal relationships and the persistence that it took even to get the first book out. So thank you for being here today, Marilyn.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here.
So tell me, what are some of the main things for keeping relationships going?
Well, I think before we get to keeping them going, if we start with creating them,
okay,
I think
that's
it's
good.
really important that people understand that there are characteristics of relationships that give them a better chance. So as much as we get attracted to the opposite to who we are, and it's exciting and interesting, just like travel, it's not always the best for a long-term relationship. Relationships that people have common goals, common values, common ideas of what a marriage or a lasting relationship is like. What are we building? And when I do pre-marriage groups, and I've done them for both first marriages and people who are being remarried, often people haven't asked the question, well, what do I hope my life will be like in 5 years? What about 10 years? What about 50 years?
Yeah, because at the beginning it's all about the spark and the, ooh.
And a lot of young people, especially women, they want to get married. They don't want to be married. And I've had clients over the years, I've been doing marriage and family therapy for over 30 years, and I've had women who, after the wedding's over, after all the hoopla and parties die down, and they're supposed to cook and clean, it's like, I don't want to do this.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting...
I don't want to be married.
That's an interesting... they want to get married, but they don't want to be married.
They don't want to be married,
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you never know someone until you live with them either.
Exactly.
And I think this generation now, more people are living together, whereas when I got married, you just didn't do that.
No, in my day you didn't either,
yeah.
And that was seen as people living in sin, and there was no good going to come from that, for sure.
So maybe people will know more about relationships. I'm not sure with the way it's done now as opposed to the way it has been.
Well, relationships change. There are different stages of relationships. For example, a relationship can be wonderful as long as there's no commitment. As soon as a couple gets engaged, oftentimes people get scared. Am I really trapped? Mm-hmm. And then again, when they get married, and you often hear of people who walk away just before the wedding, or they get married and then they're not married very long and they want out and they just can't take the commitment. Mm-hmm. There's also a stage of marriage when kids come along and people say, I can't stand the responsibility. Or a couple fights because one wants children and the other one doesn't. Yeah. And the idea of wanting children is very different than the reality of having children.
Absolutely.
And that can be a real challenge.
And even like with marriage, once you have kids, then you tend to put more energy on the kids rather than your relationship.
The women tend to do that, yes. But you see, Laurie, if you have a couple and they both want to focus on the children and they just adore this whole family life, that's great. Mm-hmm. But if you have one in the couple that says, no, I want independence, leave the kids, and the other one says, no, I don't want to leave my kids. Yeah. That's what I mean by different values.
Right.
That's what I mean by different goals. And one of the things that's happening right now with so many boomers reaching the age where the children are leaving home or have left home is, what do we have in common? And do we still have those long-term goals together as a couple?
Yeah, I know, and we've seen a few of our friends in the 25-year mark, that's when their relationships ended, and yet you thought they had a great relationship.
And they may have, as long as the focus was the children.
Yeah.
And when the children leave, It's they sit and look at each other and say, we have nothing to talk about except the kids.
Yeah.
And so developing and maintaining a relationship as a couple takes work. And marriages don't work. People work at being married.
Right.
Or the marriage will not last. When you get into difficulty and you wonder, do I want to be in this relationship? If you're really seriously questioning it, ask for professional help and check the credentials of the person that you seek out. There's many people. I met a woman one time at a networking event who says she was a marriage coach, and after a master's degree and great training to be a marriage and family therapist, I said, well, what's your credentials? And she says, oh, well, I've been married. And I said, well, being married isn't quite the credentials you want. And she says, well, I know because I trust divine inspiration. And I'm thinking, no.
Yeah.
We need people who understand, just like I said, the developmental stages of marriage, the kinds of things that make a relationship. The fact that a marriage is a financial partnership, and a lot of people don't think about it that way. And they want a divorce. I want a divorce. And I sit them down and say, okay, let's talk about how much money do you have and what are your... Well, we didn't come here to talk about that. I said, well, I don't think you can afford a divorce.
Yeah.
Because you have a child or more and you have to support this child. And it's like a wake-up call, because divorce is really about separating the money and parenting the kids. And so a marriage is a legal binding deal. And so people need to take a good look at that. So one big tip is when you get to that point and you feel you just can't take it anymore, ask for help and ask for somebody who doesn't take sides. If you feel they're taking sides, you've got the wrong person.
Yeah.
They should be on the side of your relationship. And if you want them to help you maintain the relationship, or you want to help them break down the relationship, because there are times that relationships are not proper to keep. For example, one time that would be is if people run off to Las Vegas, say, or they elope and they come back and then they look at each other and say,
what have we done?
That was rather dumb.
Yeah.
Also, people with great differences, they come back and they're fighting over things like religion and whether they have kids or not and where they live and whether they'll have a dog. And it's like, you guys don't have anything in common.
Yeah.
And I know some of my colleagues will say, you'll actually tell people? I said, if I have a couple and they have nothing, they have no common goals, they have nothing they want.
Yeah.
A woman who dearly wants a child and a man who refuses. And I'm very direct, so I will say, are you just stalling so you hope she'll get over this phase?
Yeah.
And when the guy does what you're doing and go, yeah, then I say, you know what? If you really want a child, you're with the wrong man.
Yeah. Even keeping your marriage alive and your relationship alive by taking some, we went on a marriage enrichment weekend. And, that was really great because it takes you back to when you first met and you were all that, And we did it, I don't even remember, maybe it was 20 years into our marriage. It was a great way to reconnect with each other on the things why you married each other in the first place.
Well, I often get people who come in and they say, I want to leave the marriage because I love my wife or my husband, but I'm not in love anymore. And I say, well, do you want to fall in love with them all over again? And they'll say, well, I don't think I ever can. I know them so well. Well, falling in love is really falling in love with yourself. I love the way I feel when I'm with you. So it's time to put some new dimensions in the marriage, to do some new things, to open up new ways to communicate, and say, it's when I first went to Bermuda, I loved Bermuda, but it wasn't really Bermuda. It was the woman I could be, because I was never allowed to ride a motorcycle. And I was able to rent a scooter and bomb around and get wet and dry off and stop and swim in just a public beach.
Yeah.
And so when I said I love Bermuda, what I really meant was I love who I can be when I'm in Bermuda. So now when I say to my husband, I love you, I love who I can be when I'm with you. And he says things back which just thrill me. Like,
yes, absolutely.
I never thought I'd be the man I am today with you. And so here we are, this old couple, just having a great time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's wonderful.
Well, that's good. Well, I'm glad that it worked out, because I know your books, you have a series of books, and we'll just touch on them. from the relationship that didn't go so well in your first marriage, for your high school sweetheart that you married.
Yes.
Not going the way that you wanted, and breaking up is your first book.
My first book was actually about a trip I took to England and Ireland, because I felt I'd lost who I was through being married, having children, going back to school and getting my undergraduate and then a master's degree, and it was like everything was responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And this opportunity came, and I went and discovered who I could be, and that I had more skills than I thought I had. But it took me 17 years to write that book, because when I came back from that trip, I discovered my husband was romancing a woman who'd posed as my friend. So I wanted to write a self-help book, the first one, to help clients, because I had a lot of clients with repeated issues.
Yeah.
And that was, do I have to paint my kitchen the color my mother says? What if I wear my hair the way my husband doesn't like? And those kinds of issues.
Yeah.
And can I really be the person I want to be? And so my second book is about confronting the infidelity and a separation, and then a reconciliation and a 25th wedding anniversary through France. So I combine the personal growth, the travel, and the self-help all together.
All together.
And they're easy to read books, and I have people who read them and say, I learned so much, and I couldn't put it down. It was just so interesting to read.
Well, when we were talking before we started taping, 17 years to get your first book published, and I know what it takes to write a book. It's a lot of energy, and then your book came out and you had to reprint it, and I just can't imagine. And you still persisted through that, and that's amazing.
And I think persistence involves being able to look at the long picture. And that's why when I look at clients and they say, you know, we're fighting about this now, I say, yeah, but wait a minute, you'll get past this.
Yeah.
You will not always have diapers or whatever. I remember I used to say, is there life after Lego? I used to step on it.
I was just going to say the same thing. Like, I can still feel my foot stepping on Lego.
Yeah, and there's life after Lego.
Yeah.
And there's life when your children move out of the home.
Yeah.
And there's life after mortgage, whether you move to an apartment or whatever the story is. There's life after things if you make the choices.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, we're responsible for our choices. And so we need to persist through those difficult times and then say, what can I learn from this?
Yeah.
And if I'm not learning from it, I'm going to end up going around this saying merry-go-round again. And believe me, some of the merry-go-rounds I've been on, I never want to get on again.
They're the fast ones that are going really, what does it call that, right?
They seem slow at the time.
Yeah. And looking back, then you can learn from your mistakes. And one of the things that I always do in my coaching is say, make your mistakes quick.
Right. And people say to me, oh, I'm so sorry your marriage failed. But for me, that marriage reached my goals. I got married to be married because I was, in those days, my God, you don't want to be an old spinster, to have children and live happily ever after. Well, we were married, we have children, and I'm living happy ever after.
Well, that's
not
good.
with him, but...
But you got married after you were 50, and that's one of your books is also talking about the transition into new relationships after 50. So
yes.
I think you've been very helpful in what you've put from your experiences with your background of being a therapist, put it all together, because your book has a chapter and then some help in there as well.
Yes, particularly the first one is Questing Marilyn, and that's the one about the trip to England and Ireland. Questing France, I changed the format because this book is good for people who are studying counseling.
Yeah.
And so I not only told the story, but then I put in the issues of, for example, in a dysfunctional family, you have people who will take different roles. You have the joker who will always do something silly or spill something when the tension gets tight. You have the one who's the gatekeeper, and I explain all that in this one.
Yeah.
And then in Questing Home, this one, there's a lot in here about how to save money in divorce, things I didn't do, how you think the judge will be fair, and it isn't always that way, and many cases don't go to court. And this has a lot in it of legal bullying. And so ways that the legal system, everybody thinks, oh yeah, the judge will listen to me and see my side. Well, it doesn't work out that way.
Right.
And then after my marriage ended and I got myself sorted out, I ended up, my kids left home, and I decided to go back to France on my own. And so questing confidence. Do I have the confidence to be the woman I dream of being? And so the book I'm bringing out now is called Questing Confidence.
Great. Well, good for you, and congratulations on all your success. And
lots of persistence.
and lots of persistence, and helping a lot of people, a lot of couples, to get their relationship back on track, or finding out what is the best thing to do for their relationship for both people.
And for everyone, keeping the relationship isn't necessarily the goal that's right for them.
Yeah.
Although many people it is.
And we'll put your website up and people can order your books on your website?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great.
Thank you very
thanks,
much.
Marilyn, for being here and helping
Great.
us.
It's been enjoyable.
Be sure to visit Marilyn's website and you can order her books there. Remember, relationships don't work. You have to work your relationships. Have a great day and we'll see you on the next show. If you have any comments, be sure to visit me at persistencepays.ca.